Hi everyone, Rachael Joan here, singer, songwriter, and recording artist. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to never miss the latest content. And also be sure to check out my other videos about my music. You can also find me at rachaeljoanmusic.com, RACHAELJOAN. In today's video, I'll be talking about how music saved my life. We all have seen the power that music has had on our lives. Whether you're a creative, a musician, songwriter, or just an avid listener or fan, we all have seen that music can provide powerful messages that may not be able to be said in normal dialogue alone. And I can attest in my life that it has been a great healer and teacher for me, giving a sense of empowerment, a creative outlet, and providing inspiration and understanding to others. So, more about my story. I knew I was a writer since a very young age, as stories and movies always captured my imagination. I was always interested in authors, the illustrations, etc. And in first grade, I heard an intuitive voice in my head that just said, "You are a writer." But I did not really start writing until years later, by starting off writing poetry in grade school to cope with my life issues at the time. And then later, when I learned piano and guitar, I would pair the words with the music that turned into songs with the melodies that just came in my head. So I have a very musical family. My grandfather was a piano teacher and church organist for several years. My father was also in bands, doing keyboards, doing drums, and my whole family just sings out of the blue. I could just hear singing all day, every night, and, to the point of annoyance.
Whatever it takes to make them come to the senses.
Happy, grab you, tell you a song.
We'd wake up to hearing my mom just sing and, turn the lights on and off, time for school. So a lot of fun. My grandparents really helped raise us as well because my dad wasn't around that much. So my grandmother was pretty much a second mother to me. And she would rock me on the porch swing and we would just sing songs, folk songs. Music has just been something that has been ingrained in my life from early on. And then I used to study music books of pop songs, like the fake books of piano, like Mariah Carey. So after first grade, we moved into my grandparents' two-flat on the north side of Chicago from a different neighborhood. I was just about to go into second grade. And I remember we were evicted due to the landlord showing favor to a friend and wanted to have them have our apartment instead of us. But that was the story I was told. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe that was just what my mom told me to save me maybe facing the fact maybe they couldn't afford it. My mom was the only one working. My dad was kind of in and out odd jobs, never held a steady job. He was an alcoholic, and my mom was pretty much holding down the fort. And I grew up in a strict Catholic environment. I transferred to Catholic school from public school at that time, after first grade. So there were a lot of things going on inside me emotionally, with all these changes going on at a young age. I was in a new school. I did not know anybody. I was one of the only white kids there in a Mexican neighborhood. I did not know Spanish, and others spoke Spanish, fluently. I was right away just an outcast, treated differently than the other girls. I showed up, I was kind of a dork. I came in with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles lunchbox. And just, a big tomboy. So I didn't really fit in with all the girly girl stuff. trying to fit in, and everybody already knew each other and were growing together, so they already had friendships formed. So I was just kind of like this weird outsider that came in. So they would speak Spanish right in front of me amongst themselves, knowing full well that I could not understand. So that was just another layer of, not including me and, making me feel like an outsider. So it's not so much about race, even though, yes, there are cultural differences and there might be that dynamic, but it was just more about not being inclusive towards me, which was very hurtful. I was called all sorts of derogatory terms, like teacher's pet, Polak, narc. So that just further fueled the feeling of alienation, or like I was public enemy number one. So I have friends from all kinds of backgrounds, so it's not about that. Oh my gosh, I love Mexican food. I feel like I should have been Mexican because I love anything spicy. I can have tacos every night, burritos, tamales, so good. But yeah, no, I have a deep appreciation for Mexican culture and heritage because I grew up with it, and I see all kinds of backgrounds and diversity. Kids can just be jerks, go on the bandwagon of their friends and think it's funny and make you the butt of the joke. And all we can do is, we can forgive, not forget, but chalk it up to just someone being younger, not understanding how to include others, but also to human nature being that any minority within the majority, I feel, will have a target on them regardless. So regardless of race, color, creed, etc., causes those kind of situations maybe to happen more often. So I understand that racial differences can cause tensions. And just the whole historical nature of white privilege, etc. There's animosity going on, maybe not even knowing. Things get told or taught to kids without even knowing they're lashing out or, alienating someone else who is different. My sense of self-worth was very damaged because I just got the sense that the other kids, as well as the teachers, did not feel I was as close to God as them because I did not come right away from Catholic school. I came from public school. Even though my family was already Catholic and I had already been baptized, etc., etc. But it was just like a total, coming into a whole new world, not knowing anybody or how to fit in. So my whole challenge of just how religion fit into my life was kind of a love-hate relationship with God, because inside me, I knew that everybody was accepted, everybody was loved by the God that I knew. But I did not get that sense in the environment I was in. I have a memory of being in third grade. My third grade teacher, Miss Young, while we were in student mass, she told me to genuflect before going into the pew. So I don't know if you're Catholic or know of Catholic customs, but genuflecting is a Catholic gesture where one goes down on one knee and then does the sign of the cross before going into the pew as a sign of respect to God. But nobody had told me. I'd never done any of the customs or been to church or anything. So my teacher then proceeds to literally push me down to my knees in front of everybody. And I was utterly humiliated. So I just was feeling very miserable and distraught. And you can actually see it in my school picture that year. You can see my tie-dye sweatshirt. It was so 90s. It's hilarious. But my mom commented later that I sure did not look happy. But for some reason, she decided to use that picture into Christmas ornaments to give some family members. I'm like, why? There's so many other better pictures of me, happier, more myself, more comfortable in my skin. So why? And I don't know if your parents did this, but my mom used to collect all the grade school pictures, from year to year, from first grade to, all the way through high school. So, yeah, so it's kind of like blackmail photos, right? You don't want anybody to see that. So don't get me wrong, religion could be a great thing and coming together and community, but it could also be turned on its head for malicious use and for, just alienating people and, waging wars and conflict, etc. So I definitely had, kind of worth issues, guilt, shame issues because of the whole religious aspect and just feeling of belonging as a young child. So remember, I mentioned my dad was an alcoholic. My mom signed me up for a student therapy group called Rainbow in the 4th grade, and that was to cope with parents who had substance abuse problems. And this thing was a positive thing to do, and I remember that being a good thing. And I also learned about other students who had similar issues as myself. So I think others saw me differently after that, and we built a sense of community, camaraderie, and bonding over this, that, you know what, you're not alone. Other people are facing this. Children growing up with parents, alcoholics, what have you. So I just have to tell you, my dad was really off the wagon. I catch him hiding booze in different places, cabinets, etc. I even caught him by overlooking his shoulder. He was kind of hiding in the closet, mixing alcohol with orange juice in a thermos. But he didn't know that I saw him. And he would just say, "Oh, it's my orange juice," but I knew better. And I would try to hide the booze myself or dump it down the drain, thinking he would stop, but he never stopped. And he would smell of it right away in the morning. And then he would douse himself with all this cologne to try to hide the smell. And the other kids would make fun of me because when he hugged me goodbye for the few times he dropped us off at school, the smell of the cologne would be on me. So, "Oh, you smell like a guy, you smell like a man, you got cologne on you, what's going on?" So just another thing to make fun of me about. So there were a few times where my sister and I would walk home from school. We were the classic latchkey kids, We took a lot upon ourselves from an early age on because my mom did a lot and she expected a lot from us because my dad was kind of the weak link in the whole chain. So those few times we walk home from school, we'd actually find him laying passed out in the front lawn, just in front of a busy street for everybody to see. So everything was on display. Everybody knew, groceries were spread out across. He was just, passed out. And to say it was a real shameless situation. So probably around the time I joined the student therapy group, I really started to write my poetry to cope with these challenges I was facing. I had carried a color-coded binder with me with my drawings and artwork and poetry. My sister, along with my best friend who lived 3 doors down from us, can attest to this, that I always carried this everywhere with me. And for the life of me, I don't know where it went. I would love to look back as a time capsule to see my early writings and musings. And I just did not write about challenges or depressing things. I wrote about life in general and spiritual and inspirational kind of things. And I wanted to express myself and share my writings positively. So I gathered the courage to show my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Retzlaff, a poem that I called Life. And I was afraid of what others would think, of course, afraid of judgment, being further bullied, or for being different, etc. But my desire was so much stronger than my fear at the time. So I went up to my teacher's desk to show her, and she read over it thoughtfully. I was like, "Yeah, I want to show you something." And she said, "Hold on, class, just a minute. I want to read you a poem that Rachael had written." And after she read it, she smiled really big and cheesily but enthusiastically said, "We had a poet and we did not know it." Everybody clapped, and it felt so good to express myself and be seen that way. And it just felt so good and empowering and affirming to me. So I kept writing and just writing and writing and writing. So as I developed my writing, It was my saving grace through the storms of life and the environment of gangs and drugs in the neighborhood. It was my deity, my therapist, my first love, my best friend, my only friend when I had nobody else. It was my constant that I held on to for dear life. I wanted to tell myself and all others that it's okay, that you are not alone in this. I was in church choir and I entered talent shows at school. My sister and my best friend and I formed a girl group called FYI, for your information. We were dancing on our porch, blasting our boombox in competition with our frenemy neighbor across the street. To all the girl R&B groups like TLC, SWV, and Vogue, Destiny's Child, before, Queen Bee made her debut. And we would write our own songs and sing together. We'd make up dance moves, and that was just our way of, coping through life and staying out of trouble, staying off the streets. We did not, get into any of that stuff. We were in our own bubble, our own world, our own sanctuary, and it was such great memories. So my mom tried for years and years to make it work between her and my dad. She went to several therapists with him and did all these things to try to just make it work and have him to change for the better, but he just would not change. Sometimes she would disappear, understandably, just to get fresh air, just to get her thoughts together. It just needed just some sanity, so a sanity check, a reset with all this stuff and the sadness that came with that. But she always came back, and I would say music and my mom and my grandma all saved my life. But yeah, without mom, I have no idea what would have happened. She was definitely the rock of our lives. That life was more than just this situation that she was in, and I'm sure how frustrating that could have been, because she could not change that, and you cannot change anybody. So, my mom just being there constantly, consistently, being the beacon of light that she was in this darkness. And as one can imagine, my mom eventually divorced my dad. And it was a bit of a traumatic scene, but I think, it was like that boiling point where it just, popped out, where it just hit the fan. She kicked him out in the cold rain with my sister and I watching. She was just at her breaking point. And, this was kind of a traumatic thing back then, but in retrospect, I totally understand. I get why. I don't blame my mom, given all that she's been through. But this was hard for me at the time because I was pretty much a daddy's girl. And I would cry at night for several months, knowing he wasn't there, wondering, was he okay? I developed a high anxiety at this time during bedtime every night, because I used to fall asleep to dad watching TV in the other room, and the MASH theme song would always put me to sleep. Do, 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 do. So it's kind of like a fond memory, but kind of sad at the same time, because I associate it with that time of him not being there, when that used to be a soothing thing for me. So I didn't have that white noise, that extra, his presence, his, usual routine in my life anymore. So after he was gone, I needed to have the TV in my room on just for background noise, just to be able to go to sleep. I either had hard copy on, which is kind of like a TMZ back in the day, or the box, which is like a paid-for music video, and people at that time would know what the box was. You'd pay for it, and music videos would come on. It was like Marilyn Manson and Beck and, Biggie Smalls and Tupac, all the things back in the 90s that would come on. So I had a wide array of musical influences. During this time with the anxiety, I used to have nightmares and fears of aliens crawling through the window and abducting me. I don't know where this came from. just maybe the anxiety just manifesting in this way, feeling like I wasn't safe, and that someone would be kidnapping me. I don't know, but who knows why the mind kind of compartmentalizes things in certain ways just to protect us. Eventually, things calmed down and life went on. My dad went to AA and cleaned himself up with a sponsor and everything. We got to spend every other weekend with him, which we always looked forward to seeing him. I wrote more and more, became involved in high school choir, songwriters club. I was the head of our guitar club. Also got the honor to play on the House of Blues Chicago stage. So that was a very fond memory for me. I had coordinated many talent shows and open mics, emceed them. I was a student at the Old Town School of Folk Music. I was involved with them for a while. And also for the Boys and Girls Club, which I worked for to get teenagers involved in positive activities and to get them off the street. And, I'm so proud of my dad. He's been through his share of trauma from his own family, issues and alcoholism on his side. So you could see how that kind of carried forward in his life. But very proud of him because he did turn his life around. He went back to school. He got his master's degree. So it was a total 180. I'm so proud of the transformations he's made within himself throughout the years. We bonded over God and spirituality. He got me several books like the Tao Te Ching and the Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox when I was 16, where he inscripted a special note of how proud he was of me. I guess, as teenagers, you get our share of trouble, but maybe I wasn't the normal teenager. I loved reading books and writing and introspection and learning about all kinds of things to integrate in my life. So after getting his master's degree, my dad got a great job in the IT sector at a payment processing firm. And just within a few months after landing this awesome job, turning his life around, all the fruits of his labor, he was taken to the hospital as he was coughing up blood at work. I was in my early 20s at this time in college myself when this happened. He was diagnosed right away with stage 4 throat cancer. And he held on for a few years, undergoing chemotherapy and radiation, but we did see his steady decline. It's just more and more becoming less of himself, a shadow of himself, a skeleton that was alive pretty much. So that was hard to watch. But he did get to see me graduate, saw me got married to my first husband. We had a father-daughter dance, which is very dear and endearing to me. And my daughter was born the year after he passed, so he never got to see his granddaughter, which I know he's looking upon from somewhere and as one of her guides and angels looking out for her. So I know he's definitely over the moon for her. And also, towards the end of his life, he shared his life story with myself and my sister. Many revelations and family secrets came out. He had his own experience with alcoholism through his dad as well, which is a topic for another time. I'm actually going to write a book about all this, more to come on that. So there's a lot here as it intertwines with, my music as a sense of purpose, transforming pain into purpose. I also did a study in college about how spirituality it helps alcoholism, kind of paired with that. So I actually had the honor to interview all my dad's AA buddies and his sponsor, et cetera, about their experiences of how spirituality has helped them overcome their issues with alcoholism. So it's a very topic I'm very familiar with. So from my dad's passing, the song Cornerstone was born. And music again was still with me and there for me during these hardest of times. You could check out my other video on the behind the scenes of Cornerstone, where I talk more about the inspiration behind that, which is planned to release later this year, 2024 or early 2025. So the one revelation that was shared with me after my dad had passed from my grandmother, that was a shock, was that my dad was told 12 years prior that he only had months to live from the doctor. And he didn't tell anybody. He just lived his normal life, kept going, didn't say a word to anybody. But maybe that was one of the motivations to quit drinking and turn his life around. But a more spiritual, deeper component for me was that, oh my God, I was gifted the gift of my dad for another 12 years that were the formative years of my life, which he provided such a deep impact and inspiration to me and who I am today. So, as tragic as his loss was, he could have been gone 12 years earlier. I could have been without a dad at the age of 12 or whatever the math is, which would have totally changed the course of my life. So I'm just very grateful and thankful for whatever providence it was that let my dad live another 12 years. So, we just all want to be loved and accepted, and it's hard growing up. You're trying so hard to fit in, and it's just not going to work. So at the end of the day, self-love, self-care is so important. And whatever you do to, help cope with issues, things like that, just know that you're not alone, and always seek help from the outside. Seek mental, professional help if you feel it's too much for you to bear and you need that outside opinion. I don't think it's weird at all to have therapy. I think most people need therapy, especially, this time and age. There's just so much going on, so much craziness in the world. And it's more complex than just saying, oh, feel better, be happier, It's like, well, how do you do that? But definitely is an inside job, and definitely focusing on you and your health is super important. Actually, when I came out with my song lyrics book, I actually had people buy it, read it. In my professional workplace, there was another guy who was an author too on top of his normal job, and that was really cool. So I thought, oh, hey, people could support it, etc. It's just poetry, whatever. One of the guys pulled me aside. He was an old timer ready to retire and said, yeah, Rachel, I think you need professional help. You need to see a counselor or something. Well, why do you think this book was written? That was my therapy. That was my counselor at the time. You want to kind of guard yourself from people who might not understand or take your creativity, or might turn it on its head against you and make it seem like, oh, you're the problem. There's something wrong with you. So I think, everybody could benefit from therapy. I think everybody needs counseling. But the ironic thing is that that same guy, the guy next to him, 2 weeks before he was to retire, died from a heart attack and never got to see retirement. So you have to wait to die? You have to wait to retire to actually live your life and live your dreams? I don't agree with that. I don't ascribe to that belief. So I would say whatever's in your heart and soul, to do that. Even if you have a 9-to-5 normal job, that's great. You can have that. But don't settle. Don't settle for less than who you are. You owe yourself, you owe the world more than that. So never forget your dream and always follow your heart. I hope you do. So these are the reasons why and how music saved my life. I wanted to share my story to inspire others who have had similar or other challenges, and that out of the darkness could come the brightest of all lights. And we all have the capacity to rise out of the ashes like a phoenix and transform pain into purpose. I can now talk about this from a more objective point of view, as it serves as more fuel for my artistry and purpose. While dwelling on the past can hurt, moving beyond it is possible. It's good to let it out and have an outlet, but it's also good and important to heal from it, not ruminate on it, and grow from it and move past it. I am grateful for all the challenges that have made me who I am today. and have made me a fighter, that have made me just want it more, that have made me persist and become resilient. I want to encourage all of you to always follow your dreams. You never know whose life you're going to touch for the better, and more than your own, especially your own. So thank you for watching and listening. Drop a line and let me know what you think or how this has resonated with you. I love hearing inspirational stories about coming out of the other side better than how we came in. Peace and love. Until next time.